Good evening, folks, and welcome to another preseason edition of the Cover One Film Room, part, of course, of the Cover One Sports Network. I am one of your three hosts here on the Film Room, Anthony Prohaska, joined tonight by Erik Turner, and also joined tonight by Kendall Mursky. Very exciting times, guys. Yes. We got the win streak continues for the Buffalo Bills in the preseason. We got a really good performance from almost every phase of the ball, minus maybe, kick coverage against Denver this past weekend. We got some news to go over. Summer's kind of winding down because football's about to start. Erik, how you feeling? You excited? You geeked up? You jazzed up?
Yeah, I'm excited to obviously be in the film room again, breaking down this preseason game. And yeah, I mean, fall's right around the corner. It's sad to see summer, go quickly. But that does mean football season's here. So we're trying to get our practice reps in on these preseason film rooms. And so we have plenty of plays and reps from this Broncos game. The Bills dominated them in just about every phase, as Anthony alluded to, aside from coverage, kick coverage. But I'm excited to be here again, man. Tuesday night, let's go.
Yes, Kendall, a couple more weeks for you, and then you enter the fifth grade. Are you done with summer reading? Do you feel confident in going into your fifth grade year? I know it's a repeat year for you. You had some struggles last year. But just how do you feel going back into the fifth grade?
I'll be repeating the fifth grade again. I'm behind on my summer reading. There's no chance I make it out of elementary.
You got like two books. Come on.
Two books, Kendall.
There's not a chance. It's just not happening.
You gotta just finish Lord of the Flies. And actually, that's not a fifth grade book.
No,
that's
definitely like middle school or high school.
I'm way off there. But Kendall, how you feeling? You excited for, obviously as we get closer and there's a lot of buzz and juice, circulating around the team, around several players, and we come into tonight's episode on the heels of some interesting developments in the roster the past couple days. Kind of odd Bills fan favorite for the brief time that he was here. Tavon Austin is released. Punter Matt Haack is really, I should say punter/holder Matt Haack is released. Let's lead Kendall with the Matt Haack piece. Obviously, this is twofold. One, Haack is gone, but two, that means that Matt Araiza has claimed the throne and has ascended to potential punt god status in the NFL. What are your thoughts on Mr. Matt Araiza, winning that job and Haack leaving?
I mean, I'm excited that the draft pick wasn't wasted. I'm excited that it was an all for naught and you draft this guy and he can't even win the job. That being said, he won the job with one punt and a bunch of holds. So, I mean, well done. I mean, there's really not much to break down other than this dude's got a leg. It really is a shame he didn't get a chance to show coffin corner and accuracy ability.
That was going to be my question for you. Like, how do you, we know that was a legitimate thing coming out of college. We talked about it when, he was drafted. He's got the distance for days, but hang time and accuracy can be somewhat of an issue for him as he's still developing. How comfortable are you with him from those aspects of his game? Like you said, we know he can kick it a mile, which is fun and fantastic. How do you feel about him in the other technical areas of the punting game?
Like good enough, but also like I don't know.
We don't know. Yeah,
exactly. That's that.
So I'm just kind of like sitting here waiting to see. Like from what I saw at San Diego State, it's like cool. He can do it a little bit, but has he grown from that? Because no one's seen anything other than people at camp. That's really all that we've been privy to knowing. So it's kind of tough in that regard. But I think the vote of confidence from the front office is enough for me. Obviously, we did with Tyler Bass years ago, moving on from Stephen Hauschka. So I feel like that vote of confidence in the rookie specialist is enough for me. But obviously, you like to see it with your two eyes, and I am waiting for that moment.
Now,
Jason had an awesome comment in the chat. It says someone must have showed McDermott that chart, which showed that if a punter were to hit it into the end zone every kick, they'd be the best punter in history. And McDermott was like, okay, that's all I need. And you know what? That punt by Araiza, like he put everything into it. Both legs came up off the ground like he was, doing a karate kick. So yeah, I think that chart that was floating around definitely made it to McDermott and Justin Smiley, the special teams coach.
You could tell with Araiza that like he was like, all right, cool. I'm catching this around the 15. I'm just gonna kick the hell out of this ball, and whatever happens, happens. And he absolutely boomed it. And Erik, I know I know you would love to talk about punting and that special teams kicking piece and all that's included with that. But, unfortunately for you, Kendall already spoke about it. Yes. So we're going to pass by that topic for you. And let's get into the Cody Ford talk. Cody Ford traded to the Arizona Cardinals for a 5th round draft pick, which I know for some people it still stings because he was, drafted with a 2nd round pick and there was more hype when he was brought in. But Brandon Beane being able to get him for a 5th, like Charles mentions there, and he's got the little clapping emojis, getting a 5th for Cody Ford. Pretty good value for someone who he actually ironically flashed pretty well against the Denver Broncos this past weekend, but somebody who throughout his career for the Bills, whether it was positional changes, injuries, or just execution on the field, very inconsistent and just someone who couldn't really nail down a solid spot and a solid role on this team. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough because, we watched him from day one and how, he started on the right side at tackle and then they kind of just shuffled him around. And yes, that is a normal kind of, musical chairs that they do for most rookies. They want that versatility. And Ford came into the league with kind of that in his background, played some guard, played his tackle last year, played it pretty well at Oklahoma. But I think in the end, a lot of people assumed that he would end up at guard. So they did try him at tackle. It didn't work out for several reasons, being talked about injuries being a major part and then surgeries being a major part of that. It's kind of disappointing from the sense that they wasted a 2nd round on him, but to get something back, for getting a 5th rounder for him, I think that's a good, cut bait value, especially if he wasn't going to make the team. And if Cromer figured out like, hey, this guy just needs a different start. He's not really picking up on it. And, we always talk about Cromer and we always talk about him saying hands, hands, hands. That was Cody Ford's biggest inconsistency, his hands, whether it's his hand placement, his hand speed, he could never grip properly and just lock someone in. And so if you don't have that number one trait or Aaron Cromer doesn't believe that he can coach that out of you, especially in the last year of the deal, then, it's smart of Beane to move on and Beane brought in some pieces that, there's really no drop off from Cody Ford, that depth player at guard. And in fact, they may be just as good and have more versatility. So that's the name of the game when it comes to Beane and Aaron Cromer.
Yeah, you touched on the value piece. I think, again, a 5th rounder isn't like, oh my God, but getting any kind of value like that, especially like an earlier-ish kind of day 3 pick for Cody Ford, I thought that was solid from Beane. And I also like what you mentioned of Ford being in the last year of his deal. And I think a piece that often gets overlooked for players starting with new regimes and new coaches is, no disrespect to Bobby Johnson or anyone who worked with Ford before, but he's already been in the league several years. And so you have to break all those negative habits and potentially poor traits in order to kind of build that person back up again. It's ironic when you compare to like someone like, Jordan Mailata for the Eagles who came in and just took off. And the argument for some of it is like, well, he didn't know anything, so he had no bad habits or tendencies to break. You just had this blank slate. If you get him with the right person, technically like the sky's the limit. And for whatever reason with Cody Ford, whether it just, wasn't clicking because he didn't have it in him or he just had habits or tendencies that were going to take longer than this last season to break and potentially be a longer, term piece on this team, Beane makes the decision and gets the 5th round pick. And that's funny from Michael. It could have been worse. They could have traded up for Greg Little.
I mean, the tackle class ended up being quite mediocre, right? Yeah, like guys, especially in and around that pick, and even a little behind the Cody Ford pick. I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah, but you win some, you lose some, and it's kind of a not ideal mark on Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. But when you put it in the grand scheme, much more hits than misses, and much more significant hits than significant misses. So you cut bait, you move on. I think it's also a good example of not adhering or falling victim to that sunk cost fallacy and being like, well, we spent a 2nd, so we got to develop this guy and get something out of him. If you're thinking that it's not going to work out, you cut bait, cut your losses, see what you can do, and move on. And we're going to move on into our analysis of this Buffalo Bills versus Denver Broncos preseason week 2 game where the Buffalo Bills just showed out. Ironically, Nathaniel Hackett, head coach of the Broncos, apologized yesterday to Broncos fans for the poor performance that the Broncos gave, which was just, they just got mollywopped from start to finish. Like, it wasn't just oh, well, the Bills first teamers started against the Broncos second teamers. Then no, once it was 2s versus 2s, 3 versus 3s, 4s versus 4s, the Bills were off and running, and there were several standout players. Honestly, everybody almost like played great except for the punting, because we didn't really get to see it. We got one punt from Matt Haack, but in
that was
game,
still good.
It was still good. That's fair.
It was good. Yeah.
He's had 2 good punts this preseason.
Yeah.
They've just been completely
And he
outshadowed.
Yeah.
He lost. And yeah, that's just how, I mean, hey, chicks dig the long ball, and booming punts is sexy, I guess. And it is what it is. But what we started to introduce last week here on the film room is this game ball segment where, you know, I hope people can put 2 and 2 together. We give a game ball to a player for their performance, for some aspect of their performance, whether holistically or, you know, on a granular level. And in a game where there were several standout performers and performances, it was hard to nail down game balls. I think for a lot of us. So Erik, we're going to start it off with you. Who gets your game ball and why, you know, especially considering there's a multitude of players to pick from for this game?
Yeah, I think my game ball or standout player would go to Shaq Lawson, our guy Shaq Lawson. We love his play because, yes, he's a great run defender. He's one of the best at stacking and shedding versus tackles and tight ends. We saw that in this game. And that's important, especially when we talk about the changes up front on the defensive line and how we expect that to affect the linebackers at the next level. A good edge setting defensive end and big guy like Shaq Lawson, who's able to collapse that edge and hold that edge, it allows the linebackers to play fast. It allows the linebackers to, scrape across and untethered and just come downhill and make tackles in the alley and make tackles off the edge there on those perimeter runs. So we saw that from Shaq Lawson. We saw the awareness on that screen when he's running that twist. You know, he's coming across the middle, down the line of scrimmage on that twist. He's a looper, and he sees the offensive lineman like setting to him, and his numbers are right at him down the line of scrimmage, facing the sideline. He's like, "That's not right." And so what does he do? He goes and lights up the running back and blows up that screen.
Takes him right down.
You know, again, that gets the crowd crazy and out of their seats. He's got that juice, that adrenaline that we love. And you just know what you're getting with him, you know, whether it's from a run standpoint, whether it's from a pass rusher standpoint, from awareness standpoint. Like, he's got a really solid floor. It's consistent. And he did flash as a pass rusher in this game as well. Good point. But I'd say the game ball for me would go to Shaq Lawson. He just flashed. He took over one entire drive himself and got the defense off the field.
I like the point you make there about the high floor aspect. We've talked about this offseason with the Bills edge grouping, and obviously they bring in Von Miller, and you know what you've got from Gregory Rousseau in terms of a run defense standpoint, but there was a lot of question marks when it came to, okay, well, what is Von actually going to look like? What does Gregory Rousseau offer from a pass rush perspective? Who is AJ Epinesa going to be? Who is Boogie Basham going to be? And then you bring in Shaq Lawson, and exactly like you said, Erik, you know, he's not the sexiest, and he's not this, you know, double-digit sack upside guy, but he's hard-nosed, he's gritty, he's violent at the point of attack, and he plays the run so well, which is so important to this defense that needs their front four to occupy those offensive lines and let the second-level defenders roam free, especially given how much nickel defense they play, especially given the light boxes that they play. Now, we got to take a timeout because we got a super chat.
Yeah, boy.
Everybody knows the rules here. Your boy Led is coming in. Thank you very much for being here, joining us, and for the super chat donation, and for your comment. He says, I'm a little late. Ooh, spicy. I'm predicting Blackshear overtakes Taiwan Jones, as RB4 because he does everything anytime that you love to see out of a 53rd man. Ooh, Kendall, we'll start with you, and then we'll swing it around the horn here. What are your thoughts there on Raheem Blackshear? Again, because in order to make this roster, he's got to provide special teams value. He's got to potentially kick out someone like Taiwan Jones for a roster spot. What do you think about that take?
I mean, I've been laying this take out there as someone to usurp Taiwan Jones for like 3 years now, and it just never happens. The dude just holds on to that special teams slot, like really holds on to it. Yeah, he is a survivor. He's like Levi Wallace at CB2. But I don't know. I really want to believe it this year, and especially given what Blackshear has shown as a returner, on special teams coverage, as a running back in general. Like, I really want to believe it. I'm a big fan of Blackshear. I just don't know if Taiwan Jones is going to let it up.
Yeah,
And I
it's a
also
tough one.
think the Bills coaching staff just really values Taiwan Jones. He hasn't worn pads for the first 2 games. They don't want to get him
Yeah.
injured. They're
that
they
kind of says
clearly
something.
value
Yeah.
him.
You know that someone is real on special teams when they don't dress for preseason games. They get treated like a legitimate starter.
Mhm.
Erik, this is something that we've talked about offline. The
Mhm.
group chat has been talking about, potential roster decisions, and Blackshear in particular, and Isaiah Hodgins as well, and talking about, Kumaro and Taiwan Jones and so on and so forth. Where do you stand on that comment there regarding Blackshear overtaking Jones as RB4? And then obviously potentially carving out some kind of role in special teams and then forcing Jones out.
I mean, you talked about him not really dressing their first 2 preseason games. You heard I think it was Bean today talk about, hey, if you're a depth player, you better be able to oversee these guys or upseat them. You got to play all 4 phases of special teams. And I mean, Blackshear has, but they see guys like Taiwan Jones, Matakevich, Kumaro. I know Kumaro played a lot in the preseason, but he normally does. And especially considering the depth at wide receiver. They see these guys as starters. And most teams that value special teams do. And so I'm with Kendall. It's like, it's hard. You're rooting for guys like Blackshear and Hodgins. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to be hard to, take Taiwan Jones out of there, a captain, a guy like Kumar out of there, as good as the guys that have played on special teams like Blackshear, and he offers that ability. It's just going to be hard for me to think that the team's going to cut Jones and promote Blackshear in a sense. I don't see it happening, unfortunately, but let's hope, fingers crossed, that, these guys that we're talking about that are like right on the fringe and, maybe don't play as much best special teams, that we do like them as offensive weapons or defensive weapons for that matter. Hope that we can sneak them onto the roster one way or another. Bean has several options and avenues. We've seen it time and time again. Hopefully we can somehow keep these guys around.
That's an excellent point. I think that both of you guys raise in terms of potentially beating out Jones. I also think it's not like a like for like swap between Taiwan Jones and Blackshear. Like what Blackshear would. Oh, I got to stop because we got another donation from your boy Lettuce and another super chat. Thank you very much. And he says, if Cook is a big part of our offensive plans, we need a second Cook. Blackshear does it.
He's a handcuff.
Yeah,
it's a great point.
Yeah. I just don't know if they're going to use that fantasy spot for a handcuff.
No,
that's the piece, right? Like, because so again, Taiwan Jones is legitimately valuable on special teams. What Blackshear would offer, it's not necessarily a like for like swap in terms of what role Jones occupies on coverage units and from a mental standpoint. To expect Blackshear to step into that role, I don't know if that's something that the coaching staff is going to consider. I actually think if Blackshear is making it because of special teams, I think his best shot is winning the kick returner job rather than it is replacing Taiwan Jones.
Gunner, because he played gunner on those punt coverages. And he got tossed like the 2 men, weave that the defense is sending out there on those punt returns. Like those, they took him to the turf in the middle of the field, and he was wiped out on those punt coverage gunner snaps. So it's tough, man. I just don't see it happening, guys.
I would love to have a second Cook, and I actually think if James Cook isn't on this roster, I think you could legitimately make a case that Blackshear makes this team because of what he's shown in the run, the juice that he has, what he's shown in the pass. He actually had a couple pass protection reps against Denver where he looked not even just like sufficient, like he looked good, like he sticks his nose in there and he knows what to do, and he can, kind of use his smaller size as a leverage point advantage. It's really interesting. Like I am all for the handcuffing of James Cook and making sure you have that kind of depth and that availability, but it's real tight when you start to, function into how special teams work. And, but regardless, I really like the thought-provoking comments from you.
Good job,
boy Lettuce. Thank you very much for the super chat and donation. And thank you for being here. Really good stuff. Speaking of really good stuff, I'm going to give out my game ball. Jaquan Johnson.
Oh, what do you know?
No, but see, here's the thing. I am objectivity overrules my fandom every single day of the week, no matter what team, sport, whatever it is. I've maintained how much I like Jaquan Johnson. I've always been very honest about what he is, though. He's he's a heady player. He's good around the ball. He's always around the ball. He's sufficient plus around the box. but he's smaller. He's not that athletic. You know, we know what he is. He gets my game ball because I think in this game against Denver, especially, you know, packaged with what he did in week 1 against Indianapolis, I think he's firmly locked down that third safety spot. He has, you know, as corny as it is, has been a dog around the line of scrimmage. I hate saying it, but it really just applies to him in the way he plays. Absolutely relentless when it comes to how he fits the run. And watching him and Terrell Bernard were a really fun pairing against Denver, which is how forcefully they come forward like missiles in order to kind of blow things up and force and act as force players. But I think what's really surprised me in this game against Denver, you're seeing moves from Jaquan Johnson that we hadn't seen before. Like, he's executing speed turns and things in coverage with a level of athleticism that I didn't think he had. I don't know if it's a change in off-season regimen or he is, you know, found some kind of fountain of youth that has some kind of mystical powers, but he looks like a more fluid, athletic player on the back end. And when you combine that with someone who is just fitting the run like he does and functioning, we're seeing him function in coverage in 2 high looks, single high looks, and that's funny. That's very funny. And, you know, especially in this one, you get, you know, he starts out early and he misses that tackle in the hole. And then he follows it up with just alligator tackles, wrap up every single play. He gets my game ball for, I got to stop, super chat. Thank you very much, Y-Towns King, for the donation, for being here.
Good question.
Ooh, and he says, do you think the Bills coaches will risk crushing the confidence of Kaiir Elam by starting Christian Benford over him in week 1? Ooh, does it crush his confidence? I guess that's like the first part. I think it would, to a degree. Like, here's my thought. I'll lead since no one else wants to speak. I think with this whole Benford Elam piece is so interesting because Christian Benford has earned 1,000% everything that he has gotten so far, and getting those first team's reps, he earned it. He saw that the door was open and he got himself in that door. I also think it says something on the other side because who left that door open? And Kaiir Elam left that door open potentially. I don't think it completely destroys his confidence. I don't think he would be thrilled. But I think the Bills start whoever the best corner is, regardless of like potential feelings and things like that. But I think you're going to see Benford get worked in at some point early on, especially if Trey is out and it's Dane Jackson and Kaiir Elam. You're going to see Benford at some point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think they're going to kind of ride the hot hand. Maybe Elam, kind of like we've seen. Elam starts the game off, whether he's earned that first rep or not, who knows? They're probably neck and neck. But I do think that, you know, Benford has, you know, turned some heads at camp. He's earning the trust of the staff. I think if it's Dane Jackson on one side with Trey out, I think they rotate. And take the hot hand, and the guy that's the most confident. Is it going to hurt his confidence? Maybe a little, but, you know, if coaches worry about that type of stuff, you know, the team's going to sink. So, and they drafted this guy because of his background, because of his mental toughness and what he's been through and what he's been groomed to do. This will not set him back at all. It's a learning experience. He'll get his notebook out. He'll start taking notes, watch Benford when he's out there. I wouldn't worry long-term about his confidence at all if they decide to rotate them, or if Benford gets the first snaps to start a game.
I mean, flip the coin to the other side of this. They play Benford. Who's to say this doesn't light a fire under Elam's ass and it motivates him to play better?
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And either way, I don't think, Erik, like you said, like this team is trying to win a championship. I don't think they're going to try and walk on eggshells with anyone or operate with kid gloves when it comes. They're putting out the best 11 on every single phase of the game. I don't want to say they're not going to care how it affects someone like emotionally or like mentally, but this team's trying to win a championship, and whatever they have to do, they want
to build those scars, right? You always hear the coaching staff refer to scars. Like, get those scars early in the season, learn and go through those bumps in the road so that late in the year, that mental toughness is built. You have those scars, you have that experience, and they want both of those guys to have that experience.
1,000%. 1,000%. And so to get back to our game ball conversation, Jaquan Johnson gets mine for just his tenacity around the line of scrimmage, his relentlessness, his ability to function in the run game and fit, and also just how he played on the back end. And really, I think for me, locking down the number 3 safety spot. Kendall, so we've seen 2 game balls handed out, both on the defensive side of the ball, one for Shaq Lawson, one for Jaquan Johnson. The floor is now yours. Where does your game ball go and why?
I cheated a little bit.
unfortunately.
as unknown for doing. Yep, as Anthony just alluded to a little bit right
Not
there.
surprised.
I picked the running backs. I'm specifically going to focus on obviously just the top 3 guys, but literally all of the running backs down to Duke Johnson and Blackshear played outstanding. And that's also to do with Aaron Cromer and the offensive line as well. Like this really could have gone to the rushing attack as a whole, or I could have just given it to Aaron Cromer. But I'm gonna focus on Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and James Cook, because all 3 of them performed very well. And more importantly for me, we got to see a clear picture and a clear illustration for their usage and the niche that they will all live in throughout this season. I think that was very clear through this game.
No doubt.
Motor showcase vision and clear ability to make that first defender miss with regularity. Moss showed his zone running comfort and, of course, his power to bounce off defenders to fight for extra yards.
How about his feet, too, huh?
Yeah, you can actually show some foot quickness now that, he's not cutting off a bum ankle or anything like that. So that's huge. Obviously, you can churn through contact a little bit better when you don't have a bum ankle.
Yeah, it's almost like that ankle affected him last year. Weird.
Almost. And then lastly, Cook. He illustrated the speed to stretch defenses horizontally on wide zone runs, but also the vision to get downhill when the alley shows itself. And additionally, the ability to get yards after the catch with ease off checkdowns. I mean, you compare it back to the early one with Devin Singletary. He caught a quick little curl out of the backfield. It was a little bit tighter of coverage in that scenario. He didn't exactly have as much room to run. But you saw the difference in Cook and how he transitions back into a runner, and something we've talked about all off season when we're talking about pass catching backs. It's not just about catching the football. It's also about how quickly you can catch that football, tuck it away, and turn back into a running back, get those yards after the catch, get yards after contact, all of that stuff. And Cook appears to be able to do that and more. So very, very excited about the running backs, seeing a little teaser of their usage for the regular season. I'm excited to see the ones more. Obviously, we got to wait a few weeks to see the ones more, and we got really a true teaser this week, but it was very exciting.
Yeah, it was a very exciting performance. And again, from the offensive side, the defensive side, there was a lot to like, a lot to pick from and choose from when it came to individual performances and position grouping performances. Now we shift a little bit of our focus to purely the offensive side of the ball here, from a performance that just touchdown. I saw a couple of people that said that Denver game felt like the wild card game against the Patriots, where it was just like touchdown.
Yeah, it couldn't miss, right?
No, they could not miss. And, you get the success on the ground in terms of, punching it in on the ground, but then the success in between the 20s, running the football, and Josh Allen, seamlessly passes it over to Case Keenum, and things just keep churning. Erik, when you sit and you look back on this game and you're kind of, thinking over what the offense did and how they performed, what are your thoughts when it comes to the offense and how they played in this week 2 game against Denver?
We kind of talked about it. Like, the scheming was just so freaking good. And I'm not just talking from a game plan, strategy. When it came to the different quarterbacks, you saw different types of, passing concepts. Like Case Keenum last week, he struggled, but he struggled because the offensive line was getting pushed right into his lap. So what they do, play action, deep drops, and it gave him a clear view of the field. So seeing those kind of details and how they kind of changed the game for Josh, obviously get the ball out of your hands, run those screens, run the ball, do some quick things, and don't let Josh be Josh in preseason. So that was kind of cool to see when it came to the detail there. But it just felt like, especially the run game, obviously with Cromer, there was a different level of detail, right? There's just a different level of detail when it came to the run game. Some of the techniques they were using, the offensive linemen, even the guys that are second, third, fourth tier guys, were using the techniques we talked about in the offseason. Like, that was cool to see in a game setting. And, we talked all offseason. I don't want to beat the dead horse, but we talked all offseason about how are the Bills going to be efficient on offense versus 2 high structures. And you know what? Given the run game detail with the Cromer, they were able to do that versus Vic Fangio's 2 high structure system.
Yes.
They ran, you saw a quick screen, RPO type screen to Diggs on the perimeter because they had leverage on the safety. They just did everything that we talked about in the offseason on how to be efficient, how to, beat these 2 high shells that they struggled with, most of last year until like the back end of the year. Just seeing that, and the different variety of runs tailored to the specific backs, which we're going to see in the film room. Like, that was just so cool to see. So, yeah, this is going to be a heavy offensive episode from the film and some of the discussion, but it's because of, we're getting to see what Ken Dorsey has planned, albeit it's vanilla. He hasn't, really, thrown some of the eye candy in there, but we got to see some of the detail from the coaching. And that to me is just exciting to see in a preseason game.
For sure. I'm not going to drill down too much on this because a lot of what you said are my major takeaways as well. For me, it really hinged on the running game. We've talked this whole offseason about too high coverages and these shells and these type of defenses the Bills are going to see. And one of the things that I've continued to bang the drum for is an effective running game or being able to create explosives underneath, whether it's with the short passing game or with the run game in order to force teams out of those too high structures or take advantage of all that space in the intermediate and underneath. And even though it's a preseason game, it was exciting to see how the run game performed. And Erik, exactly like you said, it was the details, seeing hand placement for the offensive linemen, seeing how efficient the double teams were. Double teams are so chemistry based, but you can mitigate some of that lack of chemistry by just having proper technique and awareness and just consistent execution. And again, functioning in outside zone and mid zone and duo and draws and just a variety of ways to really showcase success in the run game. And it's tremendously exciting knowing that if this Bills offense can have a run game paired with Josh Allen and that passing attack, it's a very, very exciting thing. That was my big takeaway from this game. Kendall, what about you?
I mean, you guys hit it. I mean, that is the takeaway. It is the idea of getting more multiple on offense, not just, beating your head against the wall the same way that we have been through years and years and years with this offense. Obviously, we've been incredibly efficient through the air with the air attack with Josh Allen, but at a certain point, defenses are going to adjust, and we're expecting to see that this year, as we've alluded to so many times with too high stuff. And at a certain point, you have to start attacking that. And as Mitch Morse said, you have to call the defense's bluff when they're saying, "Oh, you're bluffing. You're not gonna run it when we're in too high look. We know you're gonna pass it because that's where you're comfortable." At a certain point, you have to show that multiplicity. You have to show defenses that they have to stay honest when defending your offense. And seeing that, even in the vanilla way that we saw it this week, is very exciting, very encouraging moving forward, because we know it's only going to get more complex once the regular season unfolds.
Yes, and I love that you brought back that Mitch Morse point when we had him here in the Cover One film room, and he laid on that point. We talked about what, changes or surprises in defensive fronts did you guys see? And he said, yeah, they called our bluff. They gave us light boxes and they dared us to run. And when we did, we didn't do it effectively. We didn't take advantage of it. And exactly like you said, Kendall, you have to be able to show that you have that versatility, that multiplicity, that you have that aspect of your game as a team. You have to be able to show that. And here on the Cover One film room, we have to be able to show film, because it's called the film room. And that's what we're going to do now as we dive into the film. We're going to start with the offensive side of the ball, because offense is the moneymaker in today's NFL. It's sexy. It gets the people going. Let's start here on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, we're going to start on the offensive side of the ball. Kendall, we'll start with this play from Motor. It was a great way to start the game, right? One of the first plays on this drive, downhill run from Motor.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic play from him. You obviously see the entire Denver defensive line kind of moving towards the left of your screen here, and obviously the entire Bills offensive line continuing to funnel them in that direction. Motor gets upfield off the backside of Dawkins. He's got one man to beat in the hole. That's number 49, and he absolutely makes him look silly, puts his foot in the dirt, breaks it back towards the inside, and then he keeps on chugging. Put the cherry on top. He gets through the second level with ease, makes another man miss in the secondary. And Anthony, I will pitch it to you at some point to break down that stat about his missed tackles, but he just keeps churning too. Even at the end of this run, he keeps churning. He gets hit. You see him get wrapped up at the end, and he's churning his feet for extra yards once he's already wrapped up. Great run from a vision and execution standpoint from the O-line and Motor working together, but also great showcase of just skill to make defenders miss in the hole when you have to. Make that first man miss.
Yeah, especially on one there where, Erik, like Morse trips up on that one, doesn't get to the second level defender, and that's the guy who's in the hole. Singletary makes a miss, and you still see success.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you want. Look at, again, too high look. Your safeties are deep. and you got a light box. You got 6 in the box. The defensive line looks like they're slanting, right? So they just wash him down. And yeah, I mean, Morris is not able to pop out in front of Singleton there. But this is what your running back is graded on, right? You need to make that first guy in the hole miss, and it's a big hole. Make that guy miss. Get into the second and third level. Motor does. It was just nice to see him do all day, really.
Erik, the stat that Kendall alluded to, Erik, was something that I had mentioned on Disguise coverage last week, and at some other point in the offseason. So on a per attempt basis, Devin Singletary, out of the 50 running backs with at least 100 carries last year, was third in the NFL in broken tackles plus missed tackles per attempt, which is just like we've talked about him as being this above average and sufficient running back, but not necessarily having a plus matchup or a plus trait. His ability to make people miss in a phone booth is starting to become that elite trait. And if you look at it from a metrics perspective, it stands out last year. But when you see it on plays like this, where he has no business succeeding here, he's in the hole surrounded. He should, in theory, be dead to rights. And he just has that quick ability to change an angle with that burst in short yardage areas and be able to get slippery and get skinny and be able to get forward. And, you see him make a play like this and kind of turn something out of nothing is really encouraging.
Yeah, it definitely was. And again, all day, man, like he was making several guys miss. But let's get to the touchdown play, the Gabriel Davis 2nd and 9 situation in the first quarter. Bills are down 3-0. And this was, Josh Allen caught a little heat for how he was in the pocket here. A lot of people called it, him panicking, but he came out and said, no, I didn't want to run it. It's the preseason. So yeah, I got back into the pocket. This is the pass that's deep. And this is something that, the receivers that play with Josh Allen, they got to know that regardless of what route you're running and regardless of where you are in the progression, your route is always live. And so on this route from Gabriel Davis, he generally is the primary receiver. So he's running, a bang 8. It's that skinny post to the bottom of the screen. And you see Josh Allen look to him immediately. But because of the rotation of the coverage, this safety drops down, this defender drops out, and the safety is right here on that bang 8. Josh can't go there. You can see like both defenders are right there. Josh can't go there. So he reloads. There's really nowhere else to go unless he makes it all the way backside on this play, which again, he's done before, but by the time he gets over there, it's too late. Everyone's, covered up. It's plastered. So Josh, again, wants to kind of peek out of the pocket as the width of the pocket is kind of closing in on him, but he resets. And then, he throws a missile to Gabriel Davis for the touchdown.
This one just, the all-22 really does it more justice because you see that underneath defender, and not only does he put, underneath from, because he's at, the 10-yard line, even though he's downfield, you just see that layering to that throw, to put it over that defender and right on Gabriel Davis's hands. And I like it too, you can see him he has to reload initially, Erik, when you highlighted it there, because he wanted to get to Gabriel Davis earlier, and they choke that and take it away. He's got to reload. And you can see why he potentially wanted to run. He's got one corner on the outside on Stefon Diggs, and there's just tons of green grass. Maybe regular season Josh Allen does run that. Exactly, we were drawing up the arrows there on this is like John Madden and Pat Summerall back in the days, just drawing it up. You can see all that grass and why he would think okay, let me run. And even just to have the wherewithal in that game to be let me run. No, it's preseason. Let me get back in the pocket. Right. And just an absolute missile. And shout out to Gabriel Davis, who has the ability to be I'm bigger than these guys back here. Let me use my size and my athleticism. Let me get up, high point the football, make it hard for this defender to potentially do anything. He gives the defender no opportunity to play through him, gets hit midair, comes down, and that's where you see the size and the frame really, being able to separate himself from the defender, shield himself, but then also come down and not be in a dangerous position and potentially, cough the ball up or have this be an incompletion. You see that size and that athleticism really show there. And again, just an absolute missile from Josh. Oof.
Yeah, that was good stuff. And, this is a play action play to Diggs. I talked about Keenum setting him up in the pocket, setting him up for success off play action. So Anthony, I'll let you take this one and what you liked on this play to actually, this was the play to Gabriel Davis, right? Yeah, this is the play to Gabriel Davis right here. You have, and this is the same thing that happened with the KC game last year, right? Right, Anthony? You have Diggs being bracketed, and that opens it up for Gabriel Davis.
Something that we've talked about consistency. Yikes. Consistently. Get it together, Anthony. Be a professional. If defenders are going to bracket Stefon Diggs like that, and what the Bills had last year too, defenders would either bracket Diggs or they'd bracket Cole Beasley. You're going to get those one-on-one opportunities. Gabriel Davis gets it here. Love how he sells the vertical piece of this route. You know, we've heard it. Isaiah Hodgins said it last week. Erik, I know you put on Twitter that interview you did with Colin Johnson at the Senior Bowl a couple years back, where anything, you know, vertical, or if you're doing any route that's not a vertical, you're trying to sell the vertical until it's not. You're trying to make them think you're doing whatever that you're not actually going to do. Gabriel Davis sells it here. And as soon as he sees that defender turn his hips, he reads, he settles down, and then look at the separation and the cushion. He's basically got 5 yards clear from this corner because he runs him completely off by selling that vertical route, which is a legitimate threat at this point. And he just sort of touched down on the previous drive by beating the defense over the top. So the corner on this play has to respect it. The timing of Gabriel Davis sinking his hips and coming out of his break is really important here. You know, a better throw, if this is Josh Allen, potentially gives some, you know, yards after catch potential and allows Gabriel Davis, to catch this ball maybe standing up. I know some other people were ripping Case a little bit because Diggs is open downfield potentially.
He don't have that arm.
No, he's not Josh Allen.
No,
we're used to watching Josh Allen.
They're right, because that little move right there to that corner, that's a touchdown.
Yes. Yeah. And I also think with the way the timing lined up on this one, one, Keenum does not have the arm. Two, the defensive lineman is getting right into Keenum's face as Diggs is coming out of that break. So he's already reading the pressure and going, okay, he's taking the quote unquote safer shot to Gabriel Davis here. I also think that's part of why he ducks it a little bit and kind of almost dirts it, because he's got that pressure in his face. But good adjustment to the ball from Gabriel Davis, good selling of the route, way to run off the defender and create about 5 yards of cushion.
Yeah, 100%. That's actually one of the areas that I feel I've grown most confident with Gabe Davis and his growth. I feel like his first year, he really was just that big body receiver. He wasn't necessarily a natural separator. And you've really seen him over the years grow with nuance and understanding of how to run your routes and be deceptive with your routes. And like you said, Anthony, know when to sink your hips and get into that and break off this route. Because obviously being a bigger receiver, it takes more to sink your hips and to break off that route. You know, him doing it versus Stefon Diggs doing it, it's going to be different. You have to be very cognizant of when you have to break it short, when you have to pace yourself and start breaking it down, or else you're just going to be too late to it. So I really do appreciate how he's grown in that portion of his game.
Yeah, and here's the next play, right, Kendall? I mean, talk about Diggs to the top of the screen. Again, play action pass, right, by Keenum. Talk about Diggs on this play and what he does to that corner.
I mean, there's so much to this play because it's not only just Diggs, but it's also the overall design of this thing. I mean, obviously you have him on the double move, lined up on the top of your screen as you saw, but he's also condensed down into the O-line a little bit, and it gives him room to work back towards the boundary. It gives him and Case Keenum a bigger window to make this throw back towards the boundary. But ultimately, you see him get inside with this release. He uses his hands to keep his body clean from the defensive back during his stem, allows him to stack the defender. Then Diggs turns his hips and shoulders slightly towards the inside of the field, sells the post for like maybe a step and a half. Then he efficiently puts his right foot in the dirt, breaks to the sideline on the corner route. But then also you can notice how far out of position this safety gets from the run action on this play. And where Diggs runs this corner route to is the vacated area that safety came from, whether that was by design for him to roll forward or he was just overzealous because of the run action. I don't know. I don't know the Broncos playbook.
Why not? Do your prep.
He was definitely looked like he was going to be a C-gap player. So the run action,
he's definitely coming forward, but he came like super forward.
He came in a little too hard, a little too fast. But you're right, it did put him out of position a little bit. But man, how
that double
Diggs,
move,
Diggs, that was just beautiful. And I think after this play, they're like, all right, you're done. Right?
We've seen enough from you. We know you're good.
Even with this route is beautiful from Diggs. We got to shout out Case Keenum. This is a dot. This isn't I granted he's on the near hash and he's making a throw to that sideline, but good trajectory, good timing, good placement. This is a dart for Case Keenum. Yeah, look at that's a legit That's a legit throw behind a beautiful, I love that you highlighted it,
Yeah,
a beautiful
good.
pocket. Like, that's what you want to see. Keenum gets to step into it. He's got a perfect throwing window, throwing lane, absolute darts to Stefon Diggs. I didn't want to say that I didn't think Keenum had this in him still, but this one made me go, oh, like, as I saw, like, I was impressed with this throw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, I liked what they scripted for him. You know, he struggled last week. It was a talk of the week. It's like one of the, it was one of the critiques from that first game. Like,
one of those
what's
narratives.
the backup quarterback situation? Watch out. And then he just came in and was like, okay, let's do this the right way. Let's set him up for success. They did. And then I posted this on Twitter. Watch Mitch Morse here.
Oh, I was going to say, we have to highlight Morse peeling all the way back.
So here's this looping defensive tackle. Look at our boy Morse. Fine work.
Eyes.
Yeah, I mean, good Lord.
Gorgeous.
Look at him chase this guy down. And, like, you're not getting a piece of that, dude. Sorry. And then the placement, like you said, drops it right into Diggs. Diggs with the little drags that foot. You see the tires kind of kick up. Awesome stuff. Great route great play from top to bottom. Moving on in the game here. This is a segment that we're going to talk about throughout the year from time to time. We're going to call this Stay Scheming. We're going to talk about the scheme that they're running here. And the Bills on this play hand the ball off to Moss, and we'll look at it from the end zone angle. And it's a simple, I think it was like a 6-yard game, but you see him get north and south. And I just liked how Cromer and Dorsey schemed up. Again, the running backs, not just the quarterbacks, because when we look at it from the end zone angle, under Dable and Bobby Johnson and that offensive staff the last few years, we've seen all the detail in the passing game. But we saw the detail in the run game almost to match the detail in the passing game in this preseason game, which is scary to think. And so when we'd see like Moss on outside zone run schemes over the years, like especially last year when he was kind of banged up, he's not hitting the bounce read. Even if the bounce read is given to him, he's probably not going to get around the corner, right? So they switch it up. They didn't have Moss run a lot of outside zone run. What they did was run mid-zone runs. And mid-zone is, I said, I kind of categorize it as a mix between outside zone and inside zone. The aiming points are a little different. The footwork for the offensive lineman a little different. It's a little tighter. So more times than not, on mid-zone runs, the running back's track or where he's aiming for is the inside foot of the tackle. So it's a tighter track. So you're not going to get as much movement from the first and second level defenders, but you're going to get them just enough. And on this play, you see that tight track, and it influences the left side of this screen here. So these 3 defenders right here influence them just a little bit, but then you see this work being done right here and this cutback. This is where they want Moss, right, guys? They want him north and south, getting ahead of steam. Momentum. He plants that left foot. That gap opens up, and the first guy to touch him is a defensive lineman, but also the safety coming from depth. This is what the Bills want to be able to do, especially in the red zone, especially when they see these 2 high looks and when they have these 2 tight end sets. They want to be able to run these weak side zone type runs, but they want to cater to what their running backs are good at. And we're going to talk about Cook and what he did, and we saw some of Motor. This is a tighter zone run for Moss, and it plays right to his strengths.
And this is part of that larger scheme and structure piece. By having the 2 tight end set and having them attached to the line of scrimmage here, you're able to get to a weak zone run like this. More of the menu is potentially available to you, which is one of the many reasons why the 3 of us on this show since like March or February have been talking about 12 personnel or 21, these heavier based personnel groupings, because it allows you to get to more in both your, you're increasing that surface area, that man grouping on the line of scrimmage gives you more pass protection options and also more run game options. So you can get to a weak zone like this because you have those tight ends attached to the formation. And again, Erik, I love the point that you mentioned, you want to make the defense pay. This is disrespectful as hell. If you're a running team, when you see a light box, you should be pissed off, let alone like in the red zone like that. They're giving you a light box against a 7-man line.
Yes.
That's downright disrespectful. I don't care if that safety, that weak side safety, is filling from that side and he's got a primary run fit responsibility. That's disrespectful. You need to make them pay. Being able to churn out an easy 6 or 7 yards. Look how far downfield Zach Moss gets before he even gets touched. He's through the line. And then when he first gets touched, it's like an arm tackle, maybe a shoulder. And with Zach Moss's running style and his frame, he's going to break through arm tackles all day. And you see, I love the action, Erik, you're highlighting. Denver actually does a pretty good job here because the center for the Bills, that's a tough block for him to reach that linebacker there. And they fill that front side. But again, the benefit of zone, it's like a choose your own adventure. That front side is filled.
Yeah.
Boom.
There's
Exactly.
two bubbles
there.
And they shut down the front side bubble, but you see the bubble on the backside between the nose tackle and this defender right here. That's a big bubble, and they are able to exploit it on the cutback because of that tighter zone and tighter landmark. So just good stuff from, obviously the coaching staff and putting their running backs in advantageous situations. And another segment that we're going to do this year is above the scheme, and I'll let you run with this run from Devin Singletary on this duo run. And man, fantastic stuff.
This is a beautiful one. And like you highlighted here, so this is a duo run. Duo is basically, for those who don't know, it's a downhill run designed to create vertical displacement on the line of scrimmage. Some people refer to it as power without a puller. It's run to the tight end side like you see here. And the idea is you're putting that play side linebacker into conflict. So number 40 right there, who's just split. There you go, boom. You see number 40 there kind of split between the left up right there. And you see as Erik drew that line there, that's who Singletary is keying on this read. So Singletary, this run should, in theory, again, downhill. It should be straight at that point of attack. But with what the Broncos defensive line has done, so that linebacker number 40, he's able to fit that potential gap. And like Erik's highlighting, number 94, he slants inside and actually gets good penetration. Yeah, he does a good job. So the front side of this play is the works are kind of gummed up. Devin Singletary doesn't really have anywhere ideally to go. And this is where the theme of this segment, playing above the scheme, comes from, because it means, when things don't work out ideally, can you still make something out of nothing? Can you make the team right when the scheme goes wrong?
It happens.
As Erik, it happens. It's football. Nothing works out unless, the joke I continue to make is, unless you're the Colts last year versus the Bills, nothing works out the way you planned it on every single play.
Right.
And as you highlighted there, that track, right? So this play isn't ideally supposed to go to this spot, but this is where Devin Singletary plays above the scheme. He's got the vision and the quickness and the agility. So he pairs it all together. He reads that conflict linebacker front side, sees the works are gummed up, cuts back against the grain, where the Bills' left side of the line does a good job in walling off those defenders and giving him that lane. Like, the gap between Saffold and Dawkins is just screaming for Devin Singletary to run there. Saffold walls off Singleton, and then you've got Dawkins taking care of his man outside. So Devin Singletary is in the hole with number 30, and just effortlessly, like, he again should be dead to rights. The safety is coming down from depth, which isn't the easiest play, but he's able to come down and earmark Singletary right away. He breaks down. Singletary just jukes him, forces an arm tackle, breaks it. Love the block from Isaiah McKenzie downfield to seal and give Singletary his butt, so Singletary knows where he's going. He got an easy track to run through, and then here comes the other safety. Again, making a beeline for Devin Singletary. Singletary sells the upfield piece and then plants that foot in the ground, a la Raheem Blackshear, a little dead leg action there, puts that left leg in the ground, shakes him, again, forces an arm tackle. This safety looks foolish and goes flying by. This was a tremendous piece overall, like, highlights the Singletary for playing above the scheme, because again, based on where this run was supposed to go and where he took it, but also from the adjustments on the offensive line, like, in real time, this play gets gummed up on the inside. This isn't what you want it to be, but you see the adjustments from Morse, you see the adjustment from Saffold, we see that additional space created, and then kudos to Devin Singletary for being able to read that and then making one-on-one moves and making players miss. Like, this is an example, again, things didn't work out how you planned it. Can you still win on that rep? Devin Singletary allows this team to win on that rep, combined with some good adjustments in the moment from the offensive line.
Yeah, now we're going to switch gears. So we saw a little mid-zone. We saw some duo. That was the thing about this game. We saw a variety of runs, and the running backs, as Kendall, gave the game ball to them, they all excelled regardless of what scheme was called or what concept was called. But more importantly, the guys up front also excelled. And here's a play, and it's outside zone run, Kendall, from Cook. And talk about how smooth, but still how fast Cook was on this outside zone run. Hey, you're on mute, brother.
Unbelievable. I thought I was going to sneeze so long ago and I just never unmuted myself. Smooth is the word, though. Smooth is the word. Everything he does just feels so effortless. You know, when you're watching him, it just seems so effortless. But you marked it up so perfectly. You can see the Bills have 7 guys on the O-line and 12 personnel here with those 2 tight ends attached to the left side. You got Morris and Sweeney. And the Broncos have 7 in the box, but that 7th guy on the right side is to the weak side of the play. So it's kind of like they're running against a 6-man box. The Broncos D-line guys are slanting towards the right to try and penetrate the line of scrimmage, opposed to running with the design of the play, which is usually how you're supposed to defend these wide zone runs.
Yeah, it definitely is.
With Cook's speed and Sweeney getting enough of Benito, number 42 on the left side of your screen, Cook can get out to the edge of this play and get out in space, really utilize that speed, right? And once he's there, you can see how effortlessly he builds up that momentum as 48 slides off of him at the second level.
Yeah.
And Cook shows some contact balance to stay upright through contact. The combination of Cook's speed to defend defenses horizontally, and then with great second level blocks from Morris, Shakir there at the end of the play, and Greg Manx to make this play a nightmare to defend.
Yeah.
He really got a piece of that backside linebacker trying to scrape across this play. And without that, I don't know if Cook's really breaking that tackle, because he's got to take a full-on momentum from that guy and meet him head on. So who knows if this plays a little different if Max can't get a piece of him, but really great job from the O-line to flow right to left with this play. Cook to get his reads right, see that the outside is open, and just bounce it instead of taking the north-south approach.
Listen, we talked about this all offseason when we were talking about running backs, right? Like speed changes angles. And I think Cook has some deception to his speed, some illusion to his speed. But your point about the center getting out there and getting a piece of him, it matters. It matters a lot because it kind of catapults his speed and throws his balance off a little bit. And simultaneously Cook's there. He's on him quickly. But the speed from Cook here allows him to not just win the perimeter, but allows him to, change the angle of this defender. He's not able to stay square and leverage him properly.
Right.
And that's why the tackle is high over the shoulder pads. And I mean, Cook basically just slips him off, and then he's able to get, I think, 19 yards on this play. Like, that is what the Bills need when they want to run these outside zone run schemes. The ability that if that bounce read right here, if that guy gives you a bounce read, you got to have the speed to get to the perimeter. Cook showed it several times in this game.
Yeah. This is also where that speed helps the offensive line. It allows like Manx doesn't need to get an amazing block on that second level defender. Like, he just needs to do enough, because all he has to do is impede that linebacker's movement enough, and James Cook's speed will take care of the rest. That was one of the benefits of having a speed back in this offense that we talked about. You don't have to be as perfect in your execution. You don't have to hold your block as long. You just need to do enough to allow the speed and the talent to take over. And James Cook does it on this play. I love that highlight from Manx there. And Quentin Morris is the big one. It's not easy to execute open field blocks like that. Yeah. And he gets right on his man, breaks down, hat on a hat, keeps James Cook clean out there in the open field. He had a nice game Saturday against Denver.
Yeah, and Shakir, he's another guy to the bottom of the screen that's had not just nice game. I mean, he's had nice games throughout the preseason, and he's one of the top receivers thus far in the preseason. When you look at some of the PFF stats, and this one, we've talked about it several times this offseason. We talked about it, in some of the play breakdowns we did last week. He just is so good after the catch, but a lot of that after the catch stuff is the processing prior to the catch. And when he comes out of his break right here, just inside the numbers, he understands this defender's leverage, where he's playing on those numbers. And even though he's kind of rotating back in here into this void and catching it right here, he knows the angle that this defender is going to take to him. And so you see him flatten out this way, and he feels that. Like, it's like he has eyes in the back of his head, guys. And what does he do? Whoop, right back out to the boundary, right from where that guy came from, gets upfield. Like, that is just, I know we say this from time to time. Like, I don't know if you can teach that. I don't know if you can teach that type of spatial awareness and feeling for a defender when you're not even looking at him anymore. Because, again, this was another one of those, like, play action passes, tight alignment where, it kind of gives Shakir that, as an outside receiver, kind of gives him a two-way go, but based on how that corner is leveraging him and playing leverage, it just allows him to do some special things, inside the numbers, but also pivot back outside, out into some open green. And I'm excited to see this kid's role this year, man.
Yeah, same. And Kendall, Shakir does something that you've preached all offseason, the ability for, we've talked about it with running backs, but here at Shakir, that ability to transition from a receiver to a ball carrier or a runner as soon as he makes that catch. He gets into almost running back mode as soon as he puts this ball away.
Yeah, right away. It's seamless for him. It's something we saw at Boise State. It's something we've seen in the preseason before this game, and he did it again in this game.
Yeah, it was just such pretty stuff. I know, like, he had a couple nice catches in this game, but that awareness is just, goodness, you can't teach that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So this next play is another Cook run. It's a mid-zone run, right, guys? So a mid-zone run. We talked about it with Moss. Anthony, I'll throw this one to you. This is the last play of the breakdown. This was, again, not a big gain, but that vision, that cutback, and vision is something I've criticized him for, Anthony. So talk about this play from the end zone angle and what Cook saw and where they were attacking on the backside cut of this run.
Sure. Actually, before we talk about Cook, shout out to Cody Ford for absolutely annihilating his man on this play, washes him down and absolutely buries him. But you get this run from Cook and, shout out to Case Keenum. Erik, you highlighted this in your breakdown, checking to this run here based on the look from the defensive front. So this is Keenum recognizing the too high safety look and the numbers in the box, and he checks to the run based on what the defense is showing and then based on the condensed formational alignment for the Buffalo Bills offense. But you got that split zone look here, and this is just, I love that you highlighted it. You see what's going on the front side here. So again, that mid-zone type of run mixed with the split zone action look from O.J. Howard. Again, this run is designed to go more towards where James Cook's head is at right now. This is designed, again, when we say mid-zone, that inside foot of the offensive tackle. That's where it's going, where Erik just highlighted it. He's trying to go inside right there. But the Broncos, again, they muddy the waters. They gum up the works. But this is where the running back in a zone run, they have to be like water, and they just have to flow wherever the opening is, wherever the daylight is. And you see Cody Ford wash his man down, and that right side of the line stays strong. And again, we just have a wide open lane and alley between Bobby Hart, the left tackle, and Cody Ford, the left guard.
And I love this. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Like this.
No, I highlight the split, what it does.
This split is, and we talked about details. Like, look at the split of Bobby Hart to Cody Ford, and then look at everyone else. It's a wider split. And
now, why is that?
Yeah, why do coordinators do that? There's a method to the madness.
Does it mean something?
Obviously the way the splits of an offensive lineman affects how a defense lines up. So if you have a wider split, well, the defender that's lining up over that tackle on this play, Bobby Hart, or that linebacker, like, they're going to line up a little wider. And why you do that on a zone run is because it opens up natural cutback lanes. Look at the split and the gap and how that played into the angle that Bobby took to the next level and how it walled off the backside cut on this play. Like, I just love those details. And I love those details. I love the 2-point stances from the tackles on this play, but the interior guys are in 3 points. Is it a run? Is it a pass? There's a lot going on here. You got the split flow across the formation from Howard. There's so much deception pre-snap and then post-snap, adjusting by the offensive line and the running backs. This stuff excites me, and this is why we were so excited to bring Aaron Cromer back into the fold.
Yes, the split zone piece is a huge one for me. If you rewind it a little bit to right after the snap, watch that middle linebacker, number 48. Watch how he is almost like he's in quicksand as he comes forward, because he sees that split flow, and you can almost see him being like left, right, where it slows down his processing, it slows down his pacing, and that split zone action also brings those linebackers forward into the scheme of the offensive line. Boom. Yeah. So you're almost like setting them up for failure and setting yourself up for success at the same time, just off of the action and design of the play. Then, so you've got a sound structure and a sound scheme, right? And then you've got the vision of James Cook, Erik, again, like something like you mentioned, like we've talked about his vision at times not being there, or how he paces his runs. And somehow sometimes he gets a little too ahead of himself. This time he does not. You see the vision right
Snap
away.
His head,
Yes. You see him snap the head. You see him recognize that the front side of this run isn't where the daylight is. This isn't where he needs to flow. He peeps that backside gap, that bubble that is wide open, that is created after Ford washes his man down. Manx has got his man at the second level. Bobby Hart's driving his man out wide. And you see Cook just naturally, smoothly flow, puts his foot in the ground. He's a good zone runner. His ability to press the line and then get upfield. But this time you pair it with that vision. Similar to Singletary's run on duo that we spoke on earlier, having that vision to be able to work the backside and play above the scheme a little bit, combined with a sound structure. Erik, like you said, it's a lot of detailed pieces in a variety of ways, and they're all starting to click a little bit. And yes, it's preseason, but it's a very positive sign because these system and scheme pieces potentially indicate sustainability going forward. These are building blocks from which you continue to grow and progress as you go forward. These aren't one-offs or flukes.
And just to kind of wrap that segment up, and yes, we're kind of gushing about Cromer. Everyone's commenting about Bobby Hart and how Cromer made Bobby Hart and Cody Ford, average players, and how good they have looked. That to me screams you have a great teacher on your hands. Every great coach, behind every great coach is a good teacher. So I'm obviously excited. We're excited about Cromer, and just those little details. Again, the little details in the run game that now hopefully will match the details and complexity of the Bills passing game.
Yeah. And then that's where it is, right? Like the what's the saying? The devil is in the details. That is what indicates your future sustainability. It's not how you're winning, or it's not that you're winning or that you're succeeding. It's how you're winning and how you are succeeding. What does the execution look like? What does that mean for future pieces? Can you continue to go through in that manner? And just seeing the Bills build upon that in this second preseason game, it's very exciting and a really positive thing to kind of ride into this next week 3 game against Carolina. And, as we think back to this game and start to wrap up this episode of the Film Room here, Erik, what will you have your eye on this Friday night against the Carolina Panthers? Is there anything you're looking to see a continuation of from this game? Is there something you're looking to see tweaked? Do you have any certain, expectations? What will you have your eye on this Friday night?
Yeah, I'm keeping it simple this week. Injuries. Let's limit them. Let the guys that are in the bottom portion of the roster, let them duke it out for those positions and show, put these guys in different positions to make plays and to, if not make this team, put some good film out there so that they can go hit the street and then, sign with another team or get another chance somewhere else, because this time of the year sucks because it's now becoming to the point where, guys are losing their jobs and they got to think about what's next. It's sad to see, especially when we talk to a lot of players behind the scenes and get to know these players. So it's we're a little more connected and emotional to some of these guys. But we want to see these guys get out there, play the game they love, stay healthy, but more importantly, take care of their families, whether it's with the Bills or another team.
Very well said. Very well put. Putting that human aspect to it. I think that gets lost in all this, like the fandom or the business side of it. But at the end of the day, like, they may get paid a lot, but they're just guys working jobs, and we're all just guys working jobs trying to survive. Kendall, this Friday, Bills, Panthers, thoughts, concerns, questions. What's on your mind as you look forward to the Bills Panthers this Friday night?
I mean, similarly to Erik, it's more based on that bottom end of the roster, just kind of trying to get some more answers to the questions that I have, because there are a lot of different ways that this roster could be built on the back end. There's a lot of guys duking it out for 8 spots. This roster is pretty locked up for the most part. There's some moving and shaking that can be done, but I'm just curious to see who's going to really force the issue for the front office and make them make difficult decisions. So I'm really intrigued by, what that final 53 is going to look by. And I think this week is going to give a lot of answers to that.
Yeah, this should be a game where you see obviously like a ton of the backups playing and the backups coming through. And that's where my head is at as well. I think to echo both your sentiments from both you, Erik, and you, Kendall. One is health, everybody coming through with a clean bill of health, whether they're staying on the Bills or going somewhere else. And then, looking at those depth battles, how does Raheem Blackshear continue to play? Christian Benford, Cam Lewis, battle on Spectre. all of those guys and those crew. Erik, just in case you don't know, I'm my phone auto-corrected Balin Spectre to Babylon Spectre.
I saw that.
Okay, cool. Yep. So I will be referring to him as Babylon Spectre for the entirety of his career. So that's how it's going. Seeing what Terrell Bernard looks like, again, all those depth battles and seeing the moving and the shaking when it comes to this Bills roster and kind of filling out those second and third units and special teams units. And something that's a first team unit is this team here at Cover One. And we mentioned it multiple times as Erik switches the graphic there. It's perfect. We launched the Cover One, a brand new Cover One website and One Pass, almost like perfectly on time with the start of Bills training camp. And One Pass is honestly tremendous. I'm not just saying that because we're a part of the crew and because we put so much into it, but it just gives you so much exclusive members only content, further in-depth analysis, including scheme, play, and player breakdowns. You get access to the Cover One Slack channel where it's not just the Cover One team, but all the members of that channel, just tremendous thought-provoking, engaging conversation, more access to the Cover One team, behind-the-scenes content, special interviews and breakdowns and things that we have for One Pass members only. Just a lot of, again, that next level content. We're already next level here at Cover One, but with that Cover One Pass, when you become that, insider, that one-sider, as we like to say, it just takes that next level content to the next level, right, Erik?
Yeah, and you sign up, you get a free T-shirt, a decal. It's pretty cool. It says it's one insider, right? It's an insider and a football. It's pretty cool. So yeah, we have some cool things going on this year. Greg and I are gonna have different film room. I'm gonna do a film room session with fans. Greg's gonna do some salary cap stuff. We have the Cover One glossary is as a reference sheet. Reference portion of the site that you can go in there, watch 2 or 3 minute videos about what duo is or what trail technique is, what is a reach block, all different types of jargon and lingo that we use in these film rooms. If you don't quite understand what we said and you missed out on the explanation for it, you can go to the website and go to the Cover One glossary. It's $57 for the year, $57. Why? It's because, we're shooting for the big game, right? We're trying to make that last game. And so, again, we couldn't do this without you. So that $57 goes a long way to all of our creators, whether it's podcast guys or writers, and to maintaining the site. And obviously the technology, the huddle stuff that we use to do these film rooms, we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have your support. So we appreciate everyone, being a part of the community. And it's been fun to see this community build. And if there's any season that you want to be a part of this community, it's this year, it's this run to the big game. So again, $57 for the year, but you're going to get a lot, including a little tease here. Over the course of this season, Greg and I are going to be doing some live watch parties, and we're going to probably test one out this coming week. The final preseason game, whether it's live or even just a rewatch party, so we can get the technology down. We're going to watch it with you, kind of like we do in the film room, but it's going to be on time. So there's no delay. We're going to talk about the live game. It's going to be up on the screen for everyone to watch together. Only insiders will be able to have access to that. So with that said, man, it's been a great film room episode. It's been a good day of content at cover1.football. Become an insider. Again, we couldn't do this without you. And all of this is because of you guys. You guys keep, consuming our content. We're going to keep creating.
Yeah, we would not be able to do any of this at Cover One without the support of each and every one of you. So for those of you who joined us live in the film room tonight, thank you very much for being here. The super chats, the questions, the thoughts, the comments, concerns, just your presence in general, but everybody who also contributed in the chat. We love the engagement and the activity and the banter and the back and forth with us and with you all in the chat. We really appreciate the hell out of that. While you're here watching live, please drop a like on this video. If you are watching later on YouTube, please drop a like. We know it's corny, but it goes a long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. And if you are listening on any one of the podcasting apps or platforms, thank you for your listen, your download, whatever have you. Please rate and review the Cover One Film Room, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, anything and everything. And regardless of where you are listening or watching, please subscribe to the Cover One Film Room and to the Cover One channel as a whole. We have content every single day covering anything and everything Buffalo Bills and some next level football analysis and content in general as well. Again, we appreciate any and every ounce of support, however it comes. Please tell all your family and friends and loved ones about how fantastic we are and how handsome Kendall is and how he's excited for 5th grade. And we're excited to send him off to another step in elementary school.
Just give me a Capri Sun and I'm set.
Nice callback.
Cooler.
Yeah. For myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Erik Turner, for Kendall Mursky, this has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well, staying safe, take care of one another, be kind to one another. We will see you next week. And as always, go Bills.